All right, making his debut on the show is our friend Tyler Yaremchuck from such places as OilersNation and Daily Faceoff. And Tyler, we've had some check-ins throughout the season. They're typically fun. We dick around about Gene, and we talk about how nice it is to be an Oilers fan. Let's just do the same thing. How cool is it to be an Oilers? No, I'm just kidding. How do you feel?
Oh, I want to die.
Nice.
I'm mildly hungover. I've already been working for 3 hours, and it's 10:30 Mountain Time. The Oilers stink. Everything sucks. They're losing the Canucks. I don't know, man. Like, if they were, I wouldn't even be this upset if they were like losing to the Stars. I'd be like, whatever. The Stars are a good team. It's the Canucks, and I hate their fan base. Everything about this series has driven me nuts because if the Oilers would have gotten not even good goaltending, not even average goaltending, if they would have gotten just like normal bad goaltending, they would have swept this series. And now they're getting goaltending, and their offense is just kind of like, we're just gonna stop trying. They had one shot in like 16 minutes of the second period yesterday. Last night was one of the most embarrassing efforts of the season for the Edmonton Oilers. And if it wasn't for Calvin Pickard, they'd probably lose that game 6-2. And if you would have played this clip back to me at the start of the playoffs of me saying Calvin Pickard has saved the day and made it not as bad of a night, I honestly don't know if I would have watched a single playoff game. I would have been like, if that's the path I'm heading down, I'm just gonna hang her up. I'm gonna take a couple weeks off work and go golfing. It's ridiculous, man. Everything about this run is ridiculous.
Well, I think your general vibe answers this question, but I'll ask it anyway. DJ is on full not worried meter. Where are you at on the worry meter for the Edmonton Oilers?
I'm not worried about game 6, but I'm worried about a potential game 7 back at Rogers in Vancouver. Like I'm generally an optimistic guy when it comes to this team. And I do think like the story of, okay, Saturday night, back at home, season on the line, I think we'll finally see an A to A+ effort from this Oilers group, which we quite frankly haven't seen yet in this series. So I do think that's coming here on Saturday, but there's just something for whatever reason about playing in Vancouver that the Oilers don't do well with. They were bad there in the regular season. I know they got the one overtime win so far in this series that they snuck out, but other than that, like going back a number of years, it's been nothing but bad when the Oilers go to Vancouver. So I'm not worried about game 6. And maybe I shouldn't look ahead with what this Oilers team has done to me over the last number of years, but I feel like we're going to see a good effort from them in game 6. Coin flip of a game 7, though.
Yeah, I'm not worried. This is one of the series, unlike Boston, Florida. I keep saying with Boston, Florida, it's a rare series in which the better team has won every game. The better team hasn't won every game in this series. The Oilers, if you watch, have looked like the better team. Stuart Skinner legitimately lost them game 3. And like when you talk about goaltending, like, oh, you need better, like rarely does a goalie actually lose you a game. And they had their goalie lose them one of the games. Other than that, like, look at all the metrics, expected goals for, Corsi, like everything. The Oilers have carried the play. And yes, there have been long stretches where they've just gone silent offensively. But if both teams show up, do their best, the Oilers win both of these games kind of easily. I like Pickard so far, but I don't even really care about the goaltending. All the goaltending needs to be is pretty bad, as you said. And they've gotten average goaltending out of Pickard. So I'm not worried about them.
Do you think the Oilers were the better team last night? They weren't.
No, they weren't.
No.
They were not. You don't have to think about it that hard. They were not the better team last night.
They were terrible on the power play. I mean, they drew 5. They drew 5 penalties, and they didn't
3 of
score
which
on
came
any
in
of
the
them.
first period. The Canucks
came out very sloppy.
Period.
Canucks, yeah. So that's why I was thinking. I was like, the Canucks were like dead for the first 22 minutes of the game,
They
and
were
then the
hanging on
teams
in the
played
first
actual
period.
hockey, and the Oilers sucked for a lot of it. So yeah, I agree with you. The Canucks were probably the better team last night, but if both teams are at their best, doing the best they can, and the Oilers have Henrique back and they're at home, it's really not a bit. It's really not a bit. As long as the Oilers aren't assholes, which they've been at points this series, they should be fine. Are you worried about the power play though? Because that was I was kind of taken aback by how bad it was last night.
Yeah, I was watching the game with my Owen Everyday co-host Liam, who I know you guys had on last week, and he's great. And the Oilers got that power play when they were up 1-0, and I turned him and I was like, "This is a sneaky big moment in this hockey game. Like, if you can go up 2-0 right now," and I wrote about it yesterday too. I was like, "You need to go out and crush the spirit of this Canucks team early on, and let them know that like you're not messing around anymore. If you're Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers." And then that first power play didn't go their way. They had some good looks, but again, they don't bury anything. First time in this series, they've missed on their first power play attempt of the game, which is a crazy stat. They end up going to whatever it is, 0 for 5, 0 for 6. One of them was the weird 14-second penalty where they called Zach Hyman on just a terrible, terrible holding call that negated it. So really, it's more like an 0 for 4. I'm not super worried about it. Their power play also historically in the last 2 seasons has been way better at home versus on the road. So coming back to Rogers Place, I'm not worried that they can get a big power play goal or two, but I'll circle back to my first answer. If this thing shifts back to Vancouver, which I expect it will, yeah, then I'm back to worry mode. So I don't know. It's a weird headspace I'm in right now because I'm so pissed off about last night, and I'm pissed off about the power play, and I'm pissed off about Evan Bouchard, and I'm pissed off about a whole bunch of things. But then I'm like, this series is going to go 7. But then I'm like, oh shit, this thing's going 7 at Rogers Arena in Vancouver. That's not good. So I don't know, man. I'm a roller coaster. I'm a mess.
So I just pulled up to answer your question, or to further answer your question. I just pulled up the metrics on Natural Stat Trick, and it really was like very close. It was like the Canucks, I think, were a little better.
The Canucks killed in the second period, and that just turned the game around. And I think the one stat that you look at from last night's game when you say, holy shit.
Corsi was 50-50.
When you look at the stats, the one stat that you look at is 35 shots on net for the Vancouver Canucks, because the Vancouver Canucks do not generate that many shots. Like, they rarely ever go over 25 shots a game. So like, that to me shows that the Canucks played a really, really strong offensive game, and the Oilers didn't do enough defensively. You mentioned the weird stat thing for the power play and it being the first time that they haven't scored on their first power play opportunity. Here's another weird stat. The teams that have scored first in this series are now 1-4. So the key for the Oilers in Game 6 might be just to fucking suck out of the gate and give up the first goal.
I love them so much for that.
It is chaos, honestly. And they went up 1-0 yesterday, and they flashed up the stat that the team who scored first was 1-3. And the best way to argue against anything like that, a stat like that, is you just go, well, it's due for the other way, right? It's like when you walk up to a roulette table and it's black 8 times in a row. It's still 50-50 the next spin, but I'm betting red on the next spin, because what are the odds that it's, black for a 9th straight time? So that's where I'm at with that one. If the Oilers score first next game, I'll hop on Twitter and say, team that scores first is due for a win in this series. And if Vancouver scores first, I'll hop on Twitter and say, come on, team that scores first always loses this. That's the kind of fan I'll be on Saturday night.
Can we talk about Evan Bouchard? Because I love Evan Bouchard, and we all love Evan Bouchard, and we are all supposed to get so mad whenever people talk about his play in the defensive zone. He lost them the game last night. Evan Bouchard lost them the game last night on that DiGiuseppe goal. You cannot, with a backup goaltender in net, be that soft off the puck.
He didn't lose them the game because they should have scored 4 goals last night and won that game 4-3.
Yes, you can blame the offense as well.
I'm blaming the offense as well. Again, Arthur Selob's totally a fine goalie, probably going to have a nice career in the NHL. But there have been a lot of shots on this guy where it hits his glove and sprinkles right in front of him, or he doesn't control the rebound. And the Oilers just aren't going to the net. I shouldn't say most of their shots. It's something like 40% of their shots in this series have come from their defensemen, not even their forwards. To me, that's a sign you're not going to the net. You're not picking up second opportunities. So yes, the Bouchard thing, very, very frustrating. I also thought at first glance, I was like, wait, that's offside. The Oilers are going to get away with one there. So that was frustrating as well. But
good moment for the refs.
Yeah, that was a
good moment. Hey, if we're going to complain about them.
Yeah, they got that one right.
They got that. Yeah. They saved. The Oilers could have lost the game right there and there, because they could have challenged that.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then credit to Chris Knobloch too for not challenging.
Well, I think that, like, you have to think, what are the odds that the ref would be that adamant, like, in the moment? So as long as anybody on the bench saw the ref, they'd be like, we probably don't want to challenge it. That guy seemed pretty sure.
Well, I think if you're moving forward with the presumption, like, hey, the ref might have saw it and got it right.
No, not might have. Like, he was.
You're going to be wrong most of the time in these playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair. But they're typically not that emphatic about it. Back to Bouchard, though. Is it a problem that, like, that is their second best defenseman. And obviously he's not there for his defense, but Ekholm is getting crushed. Even like right before that play, he took another hit. If you're expecting anything big from Bouchard in his own zone, are you in trouble if you're the Oilers?
Here's where my concern kind of is, because, yeah, that was a gnarly turnover by Bouchard, and you don't want your top pairing right shot D-man, the guy who is the best puck mover on that blue line by a mile. You don't want him making that mistake. You can't have him making that mistake. And what worries me about what I saw from the Canucks last night is I think they maybe figured out that if they ramp up the forecheck a little bit harder, like we saw them at points in the first 4 games of that series, kind of be okay hanging back a little bit and not playing a full 1-3-1 like the LA Kings, but just saying, hey, we're just going to not make any mistakes and we're going to keep the Oilers to the outside and we'll give them the first pass coming out of their own end, but we're not going to give them any odd man rushes. Last night, it felt like they figured out, hey, if we crank up the intensity, this Oilers blue line will make a lot of mistakes with the puck. They will make a lot of mistakes on their puck retrievals. Cody Ceci is a dumpster fire. Darnell Nurse is good at the best of times, but he's prone to some bad mistakes. Vinny Desharnais is not a great puck mover. Matthias Ekholm is under the weather and banged up. I think he's dealing with a whole bunch of things. And Evan Bouchard is prone to just these awful brain cramps. And that's maybe one area to be concerned with from an Oilers perspective going into game 6 is if Vancouver keeps up that ferocious forecheck and that physicality, I don't think the Oilers blue line is going to magically stop making these kinds of mistakes. I think it'll just be a matter of time until they make the next one. So that's one thing Vancouver seems to have figured out.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was definitely their most aggressive game of the series, and I think it paid dividends. And you can see it again, like on the shot counter, like that was the most aggressive game that they may have played all playoffs. So maybe they stick to that. Let me ask you this: we've talked about this a little bit this week. If I know you don't want to think about it, but if the Oilers lose this series, will you feel like you fucking wasted your entire time this season? Because like if nobody has watched an Oilers game this season and they were to predict the demise of the Edmonton Oilers, they would retread the same things over, like bad goaltending, bad defensive play. The Stars went a little quiet and they rely too much on the front of their lineup and on their power play. And all of those things probably will be the reason why the Oilers lose this series. So would it be extremely frustrating to have the same things pop up over and over again?
Absolutely. Like, to me, the 2 big ones, and it's what's killed them in basically back-to-back playoff runs. It's depth scoring and it's goaltending. You can go back to the Western Conference Final against Colorado. It was a thing. You can go back to the second round loss last year against Vegas. Those were the 2 things that absolutely crippled them. And what's frustrating is you sit there through the regular season, and from December on, basically onward, Stuart Skinner was a top 5, top 3 goalie in the NHL by kind of the basic stats out there. He was lights out, and you're sitting there going, okay, he struggled in the playoffs last year, but he was a 24, 25-year-old, whatever he was, and it was his first playoff experience, his first year being an NHL goalie, let alone a bulk legit 55 plus game NHL starter. It was like, okay, he learned his lessons and he kind of figured it out here. So I have no concerns about the goaltending. That's what I'm thinking going through the regular season. And then you look at the offense and the depth scoring. Corey Perry scored at a near 20-goal pace since coming over to the Oilers. Ryan McLeod was, a 15-goal guy and got hot for some stretches. Warren Foegele was a 20-goal guy. And you're going, okay, they finally have a third line that can go and do something and not just break even or hang on by a thread, but they can go outscore the other team on a consistent basis. And those things happened consistently in the final 55 games of the regular season. And how we get to the playoffs and Warren Foegele just turns off his brain and Ryan McLeod is scared of his own shadow and Corey Perry doesn't look, it was his 39th birthday yesterday. He looks like he's 79 years old right now. That's the
Joe
cardio
Pavelski
line.
voice.
Maybe he has those epic face.
Yeah. Jesus. But they're terrible, man. Like, we joked with McLeod and Foegele, when they're bad, we call them the cardio line. Corey Perry is not, he's on the cardio line, but he doesn't move. He's the 80-year-old mall walker at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, just kind of leisurely strolling around, not doing much. It's brutal, man. The fact that, again, these areas that have sunk them in years past were good in the regular season, and now it's just the same old story. Like, what do you even do? I don't know.
Well, I can tell you what's going to happen is you are going to message me a link to those lights that you have in the background of your shot, because you have the cleanest, nicest shot I've ever seen in my life. And I would like to steal that from you. The way that when we have to crop it, it looks like there's a nice little glow behind you. It looks like you're getting a portrait taken.
I was going to say, it looks like a school picture. Like, it looks
very
like
good.
You're in picture day right now with the way that that's cropped. And then we got the full shot. And I was like, oh, I get it. Okay. I thought it was like a fake background. Good for you.
It's so good it looks fake. Kind of like the Oilers. Or they're fake, though.
Yeah, you had to go there. You're right, Pete. It does kind of look like I have just the generic baby blue background. It would be good for a green screen. Maybe I can do something ridiculous next time I'm on with you guys.
There you go.
Oilers and ridiculous are not often said in the same sentence, but I suppose we could be imaginative there. All right, we'll have you on probably at some point. Let's say after like game 2 or 3. What do you think the series is going to be through 3 games next round?
2-1 Oilers.
Up 2-1.
Depends how good Vancouver plays to start the series.
Shut up, Pete.
Vancouver will not win. Vancouver would get swept against the Stars.
So I feel bad because I feel like you're forcing me into a corner where I have to become a Canucks fan because you're so outrageously optimistic and
not optimistic, just
obnoxious.
Not being
arrogant.
So at any point have I been like, Oilers #1, baby, blah. I think they're going to win the series. I don't think the Canucks are going to win the series. That's not obnoxious. It's just believing what I believe.
Sean, can we get a...
Everyone's so woke these days that when someone thinks anything different from them, there's got to be a problem with them, and you've got to take the other side. I think that we should all just be nice to each other. Sean, you're a political guy.
No comment.
No one wants to support oil in 2024, man. It's a shame.
What a nice little chat we just had here. All right, Tyler, we'll keep up with you. And if anybody doesn't subscribe to everything Tyler puts out, Oilers Nation every day is my favorite. I take it in. I love you, Liam, the whole gang. Zach Cassian was on with you guys this week. I was on with you guys this week. What more could you want?
Yeah, Oilers Nation. Hit the subscribe button there. Appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks.